in Lavergne, Tennessee at the JPW Powermatic Training Center. I'm Nick Cook. I'm a production wood turner from Marietta, Georgia, and I make things that people use. My class this week was basic wood turning. We did a couple of projects that are quick and easy. We did an upside down salt shaker that is a unique gift item that so far everybody that has had one has enjoyed having it. It's probably one of the best conversation pieces you can have on the dining room table. We also did a box with a loose fitting lid. I'll be showing you how to turn this morning. I'm a production turner. Everything that I turn for the most part is already sold. And we have probably 500 wood turners in the metro Atlanta area. We have 6 AAW chapters, and they either turn pins or they turn bowls. And if you mention two things that look alike, they're like, oh, I can't do that. All it takes is a pair of calipers and a measuring tape. That's really all it takes, and a little time and effort. But that's what I do, and I've been in the same facility for 35 years, and I don't advertise. Everybody hears about me by word of mouth. Trying to cut back on the bigger stuff. I like things that fit between these 2 points, and it works better for me. In the past couple of years, I've done 1,600 of these. I've got 131 that are sitting on my, have just been numbered. I numbered them the other night, and it's a continuing thing. Every quarter I do more of them. So that's production work for me. On these, I do all the lids first, and then I go back and fit the bases to them, and then sand them and finish them. And it doesn't take long, but it's a process. So probably 30 years ago, a gentleman from Norway was over here teaching, and his name was Johannes Reber. And he said the only way to learn something is by repetition. And he said, repetition, 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 and then do it over again. So I brought 2 of everything for you to do. We're going to do the salt shaker. We're going to do a little lidded box that has a loose fitted lid. They're good skill builders, and they're things that a beginner can do without too much trouble. So I think you'll enjoy doing them. A lot of people don't realize that this is basically the oldest machine there is for shaping wood mechanically. The original lathe, or the evidence that was carbon dated, dates back to 740 BC. And I started out with a lathe that had a 5-step pulley. And you had to stop the lathe, open everything up, move the belt over and all that. And the electronics are wonderful now. So for most of everything that we're going to do here, you're going to turn the lathe on, rotate the knob to get it going. And one of the things I insist upon is leaving it on and just turning it on and off with the speed pod, because in teaching at various places, I've had people that finish turning a honey dipper at 3,200 RPMs, and they turn it off, and they put a bowl blank on and turn it on, and it comes on at 3,200 RPMs. For roughing out, for those of you who haven't turned or have very little experience, about 12 to 1,500 RPMs, and we have a digital readout. That took me 10 years to get them to put that on here. I mean, I've been dealing with Powermatic for almost 30 years as a consultant. The first lathe that I had was made in McMinnville, Tennessee, a long time ago, and that was the original 3520. That was the first one I got after having old 45s and things like that. So, but it had the variable speed, but it didn't have a spindle lock, it didn't have the digital readout and all that, so that's come a long way. You're going to start out slowly. If you've had some experience, you can speed it up as fast as you can. Anything up to about 4 inches in diameter, I'll run the machine as fast as it'll go. You don't need to do that. But the sharper the tool and the faster it's going, the smoother the surface. But at the same time, when you do that and you make a mistake, it's more catastrophic at a high speed. And we're going to use the skew a little bit, and that long point on the skew, if it inadvertently drops into the material turning at a high speed, it will scare the bejesus out of you. So just be aware of that. So, and we'll talk about the individual tools as we go. So we're going to turn relatively slow. Everybody needs to wear safety glasses. We're going to start between centers, and we're going to start with a drive center and the live center, and we're going to rough things out and then go from there. We'll be roughing out with the spindle roughing gouge. This tool, which is the easiest thing in the world to use, and basically it removes the corners and makes the piece round. You can do a lot of shaping with it, but it doesn't do any detail. The other thing I'm going to show you today is called the Badger. It's from Mike Hunter Tool Systems up in Minnesota, and it's a carbide cutter, but instead of being flat on top and acting like a scraper, it's dished out, and there's a bevel for it to follow, and it makes an amazing inside cut on ingrain wood. So, and then the other thing that we've got is the parting tool. And the parting tool, once we get the things, the boxes turned around, we'll do a parting cut to separate them. We do not want to go all the way through because it will break, and so you go down to about 1/4 inch and then just twist them apart. This is the standard parting tool that comes in a kit. My favorite is this one from Sorby. They came out with this probably 20 years ago, and it's actually got a flute here. And the flute creates 2 knife edges that do a clean cut, and it's only 1/16 of an inch thick. And you're welcome to try it out. I use it for honey dippers and separating boxes where I want the grain to match up and all like that. But instead of being 20-something dollars, this is like 60-something dollars, because that milling of that little bitty groove cost extra. So, but those are the basic tools we're using. So you've got 2 2.5 inch blanks that are 6 inches long in maple and 2 in cherry, and you can use them for whatever project you want to do. I just eyeball the center. Your tool rest should go as close as practical so that the material doesn't hit it as it's spinning, and just below the center line. Always rotate it by hand before you turn it on, otherwise it'll hit and it'll come off. You use a spindle roughing gouge to rough it down. As I'm cutting, I'm rotating the tool in the direction that I'm cutting, and I'm rotating it back in the other direction as I'm cutting. And what that does is it utilizes the entire cutting edge. Most people, when they start out, they hold the tool like this, and this part wears down. You might as well use the whole thing. You got to sharpen it. So just get it barely round. Then you can use your parting tool and these chucks will go down to about 2 inches.
How fast were you going there?
3,200 RPMs. And you can start out at about 12 or 1,500 RPM. And I'm taking the drive center out now. And I've got my chuck.
It is a good idea to check the blank before you put it on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Make sure. And yeah, if there's a big check or a crack in it, it's probably not good to turn. And I think I checked everything that I brought, and occasionally there'll be big knots and things and stuff like that, but I think everything I brought is clear. And this is not running true, so I'm going to true it up first thing. It is,
They are dovetail.
yeah. And you've got Nova chucks, which are also dovetail.
Okay.
And you might want to put a longer tenon on yours. I mean, I did the width of the parting tool. It wouldn't hurt to do 2 widths of that. And then this cut is to clean it up on the end. I'm using the 3/8 inch spindle gouge, which everybody has. And we want to put the bevel up here. And the bevel is this part back here. And it should be flush. And everybody says it should rub the bevel. The whole key is making the bevel support the cutting edge. So if it's rubbing, you're probably pushing too hard. And a lot of very light cuts is all you need to do. And this is a cut you'll use a lot. And it should come right through the center and leave that pretty flat. Got a little rise in the center. And a lot of that's going to disappear. And then we're going to take a drill chuck. And there are drill chucks on the tables around here. We don't have as many. And I've got drill bits up here if you'll just use them and then put them back. The drill chucks that are out there actually have keys, and the key chucks hold better than the finger tight ones. But the next most important thing is when you're drilling like this, no more than about 450 RPMs. These drill bits, and everybody does it this way, they have a 1/2 inch or larger shank, and then they mill it down, and where it's milled, it's actually less than 1/4 inch. And if you run it too fast, one of these teeth will bite in and it will torque it, and it's no good. So at home, I'd cut these off. I mean, so this is running around 450. And this needs to go in about 1/4 inch. Plus or minus a little bit, won't make any difference. And that's 1 5/8. And I've got a 1 3/8 that I'm going to bottom it out to start with. This is going to go 3 inches beyond that. So I'm going to go as deep as I can, which is 2 1/2, and then I'm going to extend the bit. But you can see where the possibility of torquing it comes in. So that'll be another 1/2 inch. I wish I'd have asked for a whiteboard. I didn't think about that. So when you use a Forstner bit like this, there's going to be a pilot point right in the center. What we're going to do now is take a spindle gouge, the 3/8 inch spindle gouge, and put the tip of it in that pilot point, and then we're going to push the handle away from us, which is going to leave a dimple there, about 1/4 inch deep and 1/2 inch wide. And at this point, we want the tool rest so that the cutting edge is right at about half way up. We're going to push it in there. We're going to find that little point. And that's going to leave just a little dimple inside. From here, we can shape what we want. The inside is basically 3.5 inches deep. I'm going to make the outside about 4 inches. And I brought some sample shapes. And these are not hollowed out, but I'm going to put these out, and obviously you can do whatever you want to. The nice thing about these is there's no mechanical mechanism like the pepper mills. I've made pepper mills forever. I wrote an article a long time ago on pepper mills, and the pepper mill mechanisms now cost about $16 or $18. And you know, people are willing to spend that on a pepper mill, but they think a salt shaker should be less. I mean, I've done the salt mills and they don't sell as well. I think I'll just do a very simple shape like this. I call it my egg, and I'll use the skew to do most of it. This long point should stay above the surface, because as soon as you let it come down, and let me see if there. That's called a catch. You don't want to see that. Because trust me, it only happens on the very last cut that you're making. It never happens on the first cut where you've got room to take the rest of it away. So, and I don't care how long you've been turning, you're still going to get catches. I still get them, not every day, but when you hear that little thump, 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 everybody's used a hand plane, and right now I'm going against the grain and it's chipping out. But because I'm bringing it downhill, that's the way I have to go. I can take a roughing gouge and remove that, and it won't be as dirty. But you can see what just the little minor catch that I got did. So it should cut much easier in this direction. And before I remove any more of that, I'm going to come back and just get rid of that little chip out that I got there. And if the skew bothers you, you're welcome to use a spindle gouge. It'll do the same thing. It just won't make as clean a cut. And then I'm going to just separate it here. So you can buy extra jaws for all your chucks. and they come in all different sizes and shapes. So when you start turning, I mentioned this earlier, the lathe is the cheapest part. And the chucks, they start about $250. And if you buy chucks, get all the same brand so that all the parts fit all the chucks. So this will allow you to do the end, whatever you're going to do here. And then we've got sanding material up here. I think there's 180, 220, and 320 or something like that. And I have Minwax wipe-on poly if you want to actually finish things. I'm not going to do that. Wrong chuck key too. So that's done. And then we've got to change the chuck again. And you could have done this in between centers when we had it set up for that previously. I'm going to put this in here in the square, and when you do this, the square corners need to go between the jaws. And this is not as supportive as turning a round tenon on the end of it, but it will certainly hold. So this is a much stronger holding ability. And again, we're going to true up the end of it. We're going to turn this down to 1 5/8 to fit in this first recess. And typically I set my calipers about a 1/16 inch oversize and then feel my way to the rest of it. I'm going to check the hole here. Okay. I noticed the bit was wobbling just a little bit. If you taper it right on the end, you have a little bit better opportunity to get it to fit. I love that sound. So now we're going to go to just under 1 3/8, because the first ones I made of these, I made it 1 3/8 and it rested on that shoulder, which is a mistake. And we're going to put a little shoulder here. And I'm going to chamfer that corner. And then we're going to make a funnel here. Spindle gouge, we want to go in flat, right at the center line. and we're going to go in just over 2 inches with an 1/8 inch drill bit. And again, we want it running very slowly, and with twist drills we want to go in 1/2 to 1 inch and then pull it out and clear the helix. Otherwise it will overheat and start wandering. And I'm going to draw this on the board when we get it done so that you know what we're doing. And I was teaching a class at John C. Campbell several years ago, and the class was called Turning for Food. And I did these, and one of the gentlemen walked up after he did his and he said, "Do you have any extras?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Do you have 60? I said, "No." I said, "Why in the world would you want 60? He said, "Well, I have a roadhouse in Alaska and I want to put them on all the tables." I said, "Well, there's 2 problems with that. First of all, people are going to steal them. And second of all, they only hold 1 inch of salt, so you're going to be filling them up every 5 minutes. But it makes one of the best conversation pieces on a table that you can have." So the whole key here is this funnel or post needs to be 2/3 of the distance of the hole that you created earlier. So I use 2 and 3 because it's easy to remember. I can see through it, so that's a good sign. And this typically gets glued in. And I have 3 boxes of salt up here because I frequently forget to take the box of salt with me. So we fill it. I forgot to drill the holes in the top. The salt comes out the bottom. It bounces against the ceiling and comes out through the hole in the bottom. And I always tell everybody, if you want to confuse people, drill little holes in the shape of an S in the top and only make them 1/8 of an inch deep. And this little old lady came up and said, "Can we do that to mine? It'll make my family crazy." So that's what we're going to do. On the inside with the spindle gouge is put it up in this point, and then as we push the handle away from us, it's going to leave a little dome here. And then we've got this little post that comes up with a hole in it. The salt goes in that way. It rests here, or actually it rests down here, and when you shake it up, it hits there and comes back down. So we're going to make a loose fitted lidded box, and it's made in such a way that when you lift the lid off, you don't pick up the box with it. Everybody makes one and they pick it up like this, and this drops off. So it needs to be loosely fitted. It's also going to fit in such a way that the grain lines up, which with more obvious grain, it will show up more. But anyway, we're going to start with a piece of cherry. We're going to turn it round. We're going to put a tenon on each end, and then we're going to split it. Roughing gouge. Put a tenon on each end to fit your chuck. Very carefully measure it, and we're going to cut it in half. And if you're doing deep parting cuts with a parting tool, do a cut and then move over about half the width of the parting tool. Otherwise, it's going to bind and heat up. So, and we're not going to go all the way through. Take it down to about a 1/4 inch. And you should be able to, wow, I was within a 1/16 or so. So one will be the bottom and the other one will be the lid. And if you take this out, it won't poke a hole in your elbow. And you can do a bulbous round shape like this, or something a little more geometric. I prefer the rounded. We're going to true up the end of it. And we're going to start shaping the outside of the box. And we're going to hollow this with the turning tool rather than with a drill bit. And when you're going to do this, as you're shaping the outside of it, don't go past half the overall diameter. If you go past the overall diameter, when you start hollowing it, it's going to vibrate. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to start hollowing. I'm not going to worry about cleaning up the outside of it any more than that. I want the tool rest to where the tip of the tool is right at the center point. And initially I'm going to go in about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going in with the tool tip flat. And then once I get my depth, I'm going to rotate the tool 45 degrees towards me and simply push the handle away from me. Now I want to leave a good 1/8 of an inch out here. Then I'm going to take my skew and I'm going to go right down that side and make that side square. There are other ways of doing that, but this works. Then I'm going to taper that in. I'm going to angle it in so that the lid looks like it drops down into it. I'm going to continue to hollow it. Now I'm going to leave about 1/8 inch shoulder there for the lid to rest on. And if you're going to go much deeper than about 2 inches or so, once you get past that point, I would go to a larger tool, because you'll see this one starts to vibrate just a little bit as it gets over 2 inches past the tool rest. You can hear it. Now the other tool that I can use for this, and right now I'm just drilling a little hole in there. This is called the Badger. And it's a carbide tip tool, but instead of being flat on top, it's actually recessed. It'll ride on the bevel and it'll create an incredibly smooth cut. This is worth the money right here. The swing away. So that clears it up. If I'm doing a whole bunch of boxes, I'll bring the headstock out to here and I can stand right in front of it. Thank you. So I put this into the hole. And I rotate it to about 45 degrees. And the key to this tool is not to push on it. If you push on it, it will suck it right in and it'll go through the other side. You know how I know that? When I first got it, I started playing with it. It also takes a little getting used to get a smooth cut in the very bottom. With all the acorn boxes, I use this tool. I'm not quite as deep as I want to be, but you're welcome to try this tool. I also have a smaller version of it. And I'm not going to worry too much about the wall thickness. I just want it hollow on the inside. I think that's fine. And on this one, I left no base whatsoever. This one I'm going to put a little bead on the bottom just so that you have another possibility to try. This box I learned from a gentleman from England who has long since retired and moved to Spain. And he did a book a number of years ago called 50 Designs for Turn-Lidded Boxes. His name was Chris Stott. And that was his specialty, is boxes. We're just going to sand that just a tiny little bit here. So now I'm just going to cut this off. So that's the bottom of my box. And it's not sanded very well, but that's not what we're here for. So that's going to be the bottom. And you see I don't have a whole lot left. We don't like to waste wood. this is going to be the lid. The first thing I'm going to do here is undercut this. Instead of being flat across the bottom, when you lift it up, it's going to have some dimension. Now, there's a young lady in Colorado named Cindy Drozda, and Cindy would place a little crystal or a little jewel here so that when you open it up, it's spectacular. And there are a lot of things you can do. There are texturing tools and things like that. I like function over, stardom, whatever you want to call it. So the next thing we're going to do is measure and add about 1/16 of an inch to it. And you can take a Bedan tool or the parting tool. And this should be tight. Too tight. I'm going to taper it just a little bit more. Well, you can use it for a jam chuck to do this, or I'm going to fit it and then I'm going to reduce it just a little bit more so it fits loosely. But since you mentioned the jam chuck, I will do it as a jam chuck. And you have to be careful because you will split it. You know how I know that? Trust me, there's nothing you can do on the lathe that I haven't done.
Yeah.
But you notice I'm doing this very carefully, just a little tiny bit at a time, and that was not quite enough. And yes, it has gotten stuck on here before. I hate it when I do that. There. Talk about a close fit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So that should be enough to hold it, just to do that. You can also put it back on a chuck with the small jaws or whatever. So obviously that's too tight to be a loose fitted lid. Take off another 3/1000. Perfect. Look at that. So now I want the thickness of this to be that thickness there, about a little over 1/8 of an inch. That's too much. Take off just a skosh more. And you can make this with just a little knob on top, or you can do a long skinny finial. I want something I can grip. grab hold of fairly easily. A tiny little bead here. What's that? Make the curves blend together. So the grain lines up. But little trinkets like this are things that sell at craft shows and in craft galleries and all. And once you get started with them, they don't take long to do it. My wine stoppers that I started making in 1988, I've made over $250,000. Some guy that had been buying corks from me for a couple of years called me and said, I want to know your secret. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've made over 200 of these and I can't make them as fast as you can. He said, what's your secret? I said, when you get to 100,000, call me and I'll tell you what the secret is. It's getting to 100,000. I mean, they were taking me 2.5 minutes to turn.
Wow.
So, but, I mean, and they were all Cocobolo, and I would sand them with 220, 400, and 600 and hit them with wax. And they were done. And the corks were pre-drilled, so they went on with a drop of CA glue. I sold them everywhere. So I imported the corks directly from Portugal, 50,000 at a time. And I sold them to people literally all over the country. So the students were fantastic. Some of them had not had any experience in wood turning, and it's sort of abrupt to dive right into something like this, but everybody enjoyed what they did. So we had people from all over and all different levels, but they all did very well.